Imagine standing in the heart of an ancient metropolis, Babylon, once a jewel of Mesopotamia. The air is thick with the aroma of spices, and the bustling streets are alive with traders from distant lands. Above the noise and the heat, your gaze is drawn to an impossible sight, a vast series of terraces, lush with greenery, towering over the city. Water flows down from the top levels, cooling the air and nourishing an array of plants and trees. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, defy the very landscape they inhabit. But here's the question that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. Did they really exist, or are they simply a captivating legend passed down through generations? In this video, we're diving into one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world. The Hanging Gardens are often portrayed as a marvel of engineering and architecture, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of nature's harshest challenges. But as we peel back the layers of history, we find ourselves asking, where is the proof? Ancient texts, passed down through the ages, speak of these magnificent gardens, but none of the contemporary Babylonian sources mention them. Could it be that the gardens were a fabrication of later historians? Or perhaps, were they misattributed, belonging not to Babylon but to another city entirely? Our journey begins with the king often credited with their creation, Nebuchadnezzar II. Ruling from 605 to 562 BCE, he was known for his grand architectural projects, including the massive walls of Babylon and the famous Ishtar Gate. But, according to legend, it was his love for his queen, Amytis, that inspired the creation of the gardens. Amytis, homesick for the lush mountains of her native land, was said to have found solace in these suspended terraces, where exotic plants flourished in the desert air. Yet, the absence of Babylonian records mentioning the gardens raises an intriguing question. If they were real, why did they leave no trace? As we unravel this mystery, we'll explore the possible explanations that historians and archaeologists have put forward. Some suggest that the gardens might have existed, but not in Babylon. Instead, they could have been located in Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, where King Sennacherib created a sophisticated system of irrigation and gardens. Others argue that the Hanging Gardens were a creation of later Greek writers, romanticized and exaggerated over time. But there is also a third possibility, one that weaves together fact and fiction, suggesting that while the gardens may not have existed in the way we imagine, they were a powerful symbol of Mesopotamian culture and its mastery over nature. As we continue this exploration, we'll look at the engineering feats required to make such gardens possible. How did the ancient Mesopotamians overcome the challenges of irrigating vast terraces in a desert climate? Modern scholars debate whether such a project could have been feasible at all. The logistics of pumping water to the top of the gardens would have required a level of technological sophistication that seems advanced even by today's standards. Yet, the allure of the Hanging Gardens endures, a blend of myth and reality that continues to captivate us. So, join us as we dig deeper into the sands of Babylon, in search of the truth behind one of history's most captivating enigmas. To truly grasp the significance of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, we must first immerse ourselves in the world of ancient Mesopotamia. The city of Babylon, which rose to prominence around the 18th century BCE, was a center of power, culture, and innovation. Located along the banks of the Euphrates River in what is now modern-day Iraq, Babylon was the beating heart of a vast empire that stretched across the Fertile Crescent. This region, often called the cradle of civilization, was where humankind first built cities, developed writing, and mastered agriculture. Against this backdrop of progress and human achievement, the Hanging Gardens, if they existed, would have been a crowning glory, a symbol of Babylon's dominance and its ability to conquer even the harshest elements of nature. At the height of its power under the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II, Babylon was the largest city in the world, renowned for its towering walls and architectural marvels. The city was home to the majestic ziggurats, the great temples dedicated to the gods, as well as the famous Ishtar Gate, a monumental entryway adorned with bright blue tiles and images of lions, dragons, and bulls. Babylon was not just a city of politics and trade, it was a spiritual and intellectual hub. The Babylonians excelled in fields such as astronomy, mathematics, and engineering. Their advancements in hydraulic engineering, in particular, allowed them to transform the desert into a thriving urban landscape, irrigating fields and supporting a growing population. The Hanging Gardens, if real, would have been a testament to this mastery, an oasis in the desert, engineered to mimic the natural beauty of mountainous terrain in an otherwise flat, arid environment. The supposed creation of the Hanging Gardens has often been linked to the love story between Nebuchadnezzar and his wife, Queen Amytis of Media. According to legend, Amytis longed for the verdant hills and forests of her homeland, and to ease her homesickness, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the construction of the gardens. But more than a personal gesture, the gardens, if they existed, would have been a powerful statement about the reach of Babylon's influence. They would have symbolized the empire's ability to shape and control nature, demonstrating that Babylon's kings could command not only armies and cities but also the elements themselves. In this sense, the Hanging Gardens were more than just a wonder of the world. They were a projection of Babylonian power and ambition, a living testament to the ingenuity and capabilities of the ancient world. However, the historical context of the Hanging Gardens extends beyond mere legend. The ancient Near East was a region of constant innovation and competition, where cities and empires vied for dominance not just through military might but also through cultural achievements. Babylon's rivals, including the Assyrians and the Persians, were also known for their monumental architecture and their ability to harness the environment to create impressive urban centers. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed, would have been part of this broader tradition of Mesopotamian engineering. They would have utilized advanced techniques to pump water from the Euphrates River up to the higher levels of the garden terraces, creating a lush paradise in the midst of the desert. These gardens, while extraordinary, would have been the culmination of centuries of knowledge in irrigation and construction, passed down through generations of Mesopotamian engineers and builders. In this context, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon stand as a symbol of the broader cultural and technological achievements of ancient Mesopotamia. They represent the human desire to transcend natural limitations, to create beauty and life in places where it seems impossible. Whether they were real or imagined, the gardens continue to offer a window into the minds of the people who built and lived in the ancient world. They remind us of the incredible feats that ancient civilizations were capable of achieving, and they inspire us to explore the full extent of what we know, and don't know, about the past. Picture yourself walking through the bustling streets of Babylon in the 6th century BCE, a vibrant city alive with activity and commerce. The heat of the Mesopotamian sun beats down, but the scent of exotic spices and incense wafts through the air, carried by the gentle breeze from the nearby Euphrates River. Merchants from across the ancient world, Persia, Egypt, India, gather in the crowded marketplace, their voices blending into a symphony of different languages as they trade silks, spices, and precious stones. The sounds of haggling fill your ears, and the colors of the market, vibrant fabrics, shimmering gold, and the deep blues and reds of Babylonian art, dazzle your eyes. Above all this, the towering structures of the city rise into view, including the imposing ziggurat of Etemenanke, dedicated to the god Marduk, its steps filled with priests ascending in prayer. As you move further into the city, the air changes. The heat becomes less oppressive, replaced by a cool breeze. You follow the sound of gently flowing water and find yourself gazing upon a sight that seems to defy the very laws of nature. Rising above the flat rooftops of the mud brick houses are the Hanging Gardens, an oasis of green in the heart of the desert. Layer upon layer of terraces stretch upwards, each one draped with lush vegetation. Flowers of every color bloom in abundance, vines cascade down the walls, and towering trees provide shade from the relentless sun. Water flows down from the highest terrace, creating shimmering waterfalls that cool the surrounding air and nourish the plants. The entire structure creates a microclimate, a paradise of greenery and freshness amidst the dry, harsh landscape of Mesopotamia. The terraces themselves are marvels of engineering, designed to support not just the weight of soil and plants, but also the intricate system of water channels and pumps that keep the gardens thriving. Ingenious methods, possibly involving a chain pump or similar device, draw water from the Euphrates to the top levels of the gardens, ensuring that even the highest terraces remain lush and fertile. The water cascades from one level to the next, pooling in small streams and ponds, and providing a constant, soothing sound that contrasts sharply with the noise of the city below. It is a place of tranquility and beauty, a stark contrast to the arid surroundings, and a testament to the power of human innovation. As you gaze up at the gardens, you can imagine what they must represent to the people of Babylon. To some, they are a symbol of their king's greatness. Nebuchadnezzar II, the ruler who could bring the mountains and forests to his city for his queen, Amytis. To others, they are a religious symbol, perhaps representing the divine connection between the heavens and the earth, with the plants and trees reaching skyward like the ziggurats of the gods. And for those who labor within the gardens, they are a daily reminder of the skill and knowledge required to maintain such a complex structure in a challenging environment. Each plant, tree, and flower is carefully tended by gardeners, whose expertise in agriculture and irrigation keeps this wonder alive in the heart of Babylon. Imagine standing at the foot of the gardens, feeling the cool mist of the waterfalls on your skin as you look up at the towering terraces above. The sight is breathtaking, And it's easy to understand why the Hanging Gardens became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. They are not just a feat of engineering, they are a triumph of human imagination, an example of how the people of ancient Babylon were able to shape the natural world to their will. This oasis in the desert was more than a mere garden. It was a symbol of power, wealth, and the ability to overcome the challenges of the natural environment. As you walk away from the gardens, back into the heat and dust of the city, the image of those verdant terraces stays with you, a glimpse into a world where human ambition and nature coexist in perfect harmony. The legend of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon is inextricably tied to the figure of King Nebuchadnezzar II, a powerful ruler who reigned over Babylon from 605 to 562 BCE. Nebuchadnezzar is remembered as one of the greatest kings of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, known for his military conquests, grand construction projects, and his efforts to make Babylon the most splendid city in the ancient world. Under his reign, Babylon became a beacon of power and culture, with towering walls, magnificent temples, and the famous Ishtar Gate, which showcased the city's wealth and influence. But perhaps his most famous and debated achievement is the creation of the Hanging Gardens, a wonder built not for political or military purposes, but out of love, or so the legend tells us. According to the story, Nebuchadnezzar built the gardens for his wife, Queen Amytis, who was from the region of Media, located in what is now northwestern Iran. Amytis, having grown up surrounded by the lush mountains and forests of her homeland, is said to have found the flat, arid landscape of Babylon oppressively barren. To ease her homesickness, Nebuchadnezzar is believed to have ordered the construction of the Hanging Gardens, a green paradise in the heart of the desert, designed to mimic the mountainous beauty of Media. These terraces, filled with trees, flowers, and flowing water, were intended to comfort Amytis, allowing her to feel at home despite the stark differences in the environment. Nebuchadnezzar's motivations, if this story is to be believed, were deeply personal. The creation of the gardens was not only a testament to his love for Amytis, but also a symbol of his ability to conquer even the forces of nature, bending the harsh desert to his will. In this sense, the Hanging Gardens, if they existed, represented not just a private retreat for the queen but also a public display of the king's power and ingenuity. Nebuchadnezzar's reign was characterized by massive building projects, and the Hanging Gardens would have been the jewel in the crown of his architectural achievements, solidifying Babylon's reputation as a city of wonders. However, as with many ancient legends, the story of the Hanging Gardens is shrouded in mystery and ambiguity. The first detailed accounts of the gardens come not from Babylonian sources but from much later Greek historians, such as Diodorus Siculus and Strabo, writing centuries after Nebuchadnezzar's time. Diodorus, in particular, writing in the 1st century BCE, nearly 500 years after the supposed construction of the gardens, provides one of the most elaborate descriptions. He describes towering terraces filled with all manner of plants and trees, irrigated by a complex system that brought water from the Euphrates to the highest levels of the gardens. Yet, despite these detailed accounts, no contemporary Babylonian records or inscriptions mention the Hanging Gardens, raising significant questions about their existence. This discrepancy between the legendary status of the gardens and the lack of direct Babylonian evidence has fueled centuries of debate among scholars. Some historians argue that the gardens may never have existed at all, suggesting that later Greek and Roman writers may have exaggerated or misinterpreted earlier accounts of Babylon's architectural wonders. Others propose that the gardens may have been located in a different city entirely, such as Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire, where King Sennacherib is known to have built impressive gardens using advanced irrigation techniques. The absence of direct Babylonian records is particularly striking, given Nebuchadnezzar's tendency to immortalize his achievements in inscriptions and monuments. For a king so focused on commemorating his accomplishments, it seems unlikely that he would have left no mention of such an extraordinary feat as the Hanging Gardens. This leads some scholars to speculate that the gardens may have been a later invention, a romanticized tale grafted onto the legend of Nebuchadnezzar's reign by later generations of historians. Despite these doubts, the story of Nebuchadnezzar and the Hanging Gardens endures. It speaks to the human desire to find meaning and beauty in history, to connect grand feats of engineering and architecture with the personal stories of love and devotion. Whether or not the Hanging Gardens truly existed, they remain a powerful symbol of the heights that human ambition and creativity can reach. Nebuchadnezzar, Amytis, and the lush terraces of the Hanging Gardens continue to captivate our imaginations, representing the intersection of myth, history, and the enduring quest to shape the natural world in the image of our desires. The quest for the truth about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon has been a tantalizing puzzle for historians, archaeologists, and scholars alike. As with many ancient wonders, the line between fact and fiction has blurred over time. To unravel this mystery, we turn to 3 primary lines of investigation: literary evidence, archaeological findings, and technical feasibility. Each of these approaches offers crucial insights but also raises new questions about the reality of this ancient wonder. Let's dive into these aspects in detail. The first and perhaps most perplexing aspect of the search for the Hanging Gardens is the lack of any mention in contemporary Babylonian texts. For a civilization known for its detailed records, this absence is particularly puzzling. Babylonian scribes documented numerous aspects of Nebuchadnezzar II's reign, including his grand architectural achievements such as the Ishtar Gate and the city's immense walls. Yet, nowhere in the surviving Babylonian cuneiform tablets is there a reference to the Hanging Gardens. This has led many to question whether the gardens ever existed in Babylon at all. However, detailed descriptions of the Hanging Gardens do appear in later Greek and Roman texts, most notably from historians such as Diodorus Siculus, Strabo, and Philo of Byzantium. These writers, working centuries after Nebuchadnezzar's time, describe the gardens as an elaborate series of terraces filled with a vast array of plants, supported by advanced irrigation systems that pumped water to the highest levels. While these accounts are vivid and detailed, they are problematic due to their distance from the actual events, leading to speculation that these writers may have romanticized or misunderstood the stories passed down to them. Another compelling theory is that the Greek and Roman historians might have confused the location of the gardens. Some scholars believe that these descriptions could refer not to Babylon, but to the city of Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. King Sennacherib of Assyria, who ruled a century before Nebuchadnezzar, is known to have created grand gardens in Nineveh, complete with sophisticated irrigation systems. It is possible that later writers attributed these gardens to Babylon by mistake, further complicating the search for the true origins of the Hanging Gardens. The second line of investigation focuses on archaeology. Despite numerous excavations in and around the site of ancient Babylon, no definitive ruins have been uncovered that can be identified as the remains of the Hanging Gardens. Archaeologists have unearthed the remnants of many of Nebuchadnezzar's other building projects, but there is a striking absence of any structures that fit the description of the tiered gardens described in the Greek and Roman accounts. This lack of physical evidence has fueled skepticism about the gardens' existence in Babylon. However, in the ruins of Nineveh, archaeologists have discovered clues that suggest the presence of impressive gardens during the reign of Sennacherib. The king's own inscriptions describe the construction of vast gardens irrigated by an aqueduct system that brought water from distant mountains. These inscriptions detail how Sennacherib transformed the arid landscape of Nineveh into a lush paradise, using innovative engineering techniques to sustain the gardens. These discoveries have led some researchers to propose that the Hanging Gardens were, in fact, located in Nineveh, not Babylon, and that the confusion arose from later misattributions by ancient historians. While the evidence from Nineveh is intriguing, it is far from conclusive. The absence of definitive archaeological remains in Babylon, combined with the limited findings in Nineveh, leaves us without a clear answer. Nevertheless, the search continues, with new technologies such as satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar offering hope for future discoveries. The third line of inquiry involves the technical feasibility of the Hanging Gardens. If the gardens did exist, they would have required advanced engineering solutions to overcome the challenges of irrigating vast terraces in a desert climate. The most significant technical challenge would have been how to raise water from the Euphrates River to the topmost levels of the gardens, possibly reaching heights of 20 meters or more. In a region with limited rainfall and harsh conditions, maintaining such a garden would have been an enormous feat of engineering. One theory suggests that the Babylonians or Assyrians may have used a device known as a chain pump, a mechanical system powered by slaves or animals to lift water to the upper levels. This system, combined with canals and aqueducts, could have transported water from the river to irrigate the gardens. Additionally, the terraces would have required a sophisticated system of waterproofing to prevent water from seeping through the brick structures and causing them to collapse. Bitumen, a natural form of asphalt, was commonly used in Babylonian construction to seal buildings and could have been employed to make the terraces water-resistant. Modern scholars and engineers have debated whether the Babylonians had the technical knowledge and resources to construct and maintain such a complex irrigation system. While it is clear that the Mesopotamians were highly skilled in hydraulic engineering, the sheer scale of the Hanging Gardens, as described in ancient texts, may have been beyond their capabilities. This has led some to argue that the gardens, if they existed, may not have been as grand or extensive as later writers claimed. The search for the Hanging Gardens of Babylon remains an intriguing blend of myth, history, and speculation. The literary evidence, though detailed, comes from sources far removed from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, raising questions about the accuracy of the accounts. Archaeologically, the lack of ruins in Babylon and the tantalizing discoveries in Nineveh leave us with more questions than answers. Technically, The challenges of creating and maintaining such a garden would have been immense, though not entirely impossible given the engineering capabilities of the time. The mystery of the Hanging Gardens persists, inviting further exploration and debate. Were they a real, awe-inspiring wonder of the ancient world, or simply a beautiful legend? The truth may remain hidden in the sands of Mesopotamia, waiting for the next great discovery to finally reveal the answer. The debate surrounding the existence of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon is one of the most enduring controversies in the study of ancient history. For decades, scholars have been divided into two camps, each presenting compelling arguments. On one side, skeptics argue that the lack of contemporary evidence from Babylonian sources, as well as the absence of any definitive archaeological findings, suggests that the gardens are nothing more than a legendary creation, a symbol of the grandeur and imagination of the ancient world, but not a historical reality. On the other side, proponents of the garden's existence point to the sophistication of Babylonian engineering and the possibility of misattributed locations in ancient texts. They believe that the gardens may have existed, perhaps not exactly as described by later historians, but as a real architectural wonder that could have been confused with similar constructions in nearby cities. The tension between these opposing viewpoints stems from the frustrating nature of the evidence, or rather, the lack of it. Those who argue against the existence of the gardens point to a crucial problem. No contemporary Babylonian records mention the Hanging Gardens. For a civilization known for documenting its achievements, this is a significant omission. King Nebuchadnezzar II, who is often credited with the creation of the gardens, left behind numerous inscriptions detailing his building projects, yet none of them refer to the gardens. Furthermore, despite extensive excavations at the site of ancient Babylon, archaeologists have not found any physical remains that could be identified as part of the gardens, raising further doubts about their historical authenticity. On the other hand, defenders of the garden's existence argue that the absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. They highlight the fact that much of Babylon's ancient infrastructure has been lost to time, erosion, and human intervention. Babylon, situated in a region that has seen millennia of conflict and environmental change, may simply not have preserved the structures that once existed. Supporters also point to the remarkable engineering feats of the Babylonians, who were capable of constructing advanced irrigation systems, monumental ziggurats, and massive city walls. Given these achievements, the creation of a garden using sophisticated water management techniques would not have been beyond their capabilities. A major source of tension lies in the ancient accounts that describe the gardens, particularly those of Greek and Roman historians. Writers such as Diodorus Siculus and Strabo provide detailed descriptions of the gardens, but their accounts were written centuries after the supposed construction of the gardens, and they rely heavily on second-hand sources. Some scholars believe that these accounts may have conflated stories from different regions, mistakenly attributing gardens from other cities, such as Nineveh, to Babylon. This theory suggests that while the concept of the Hanging Gardens may have been based in reality, their location and details were distorted over time. As new technologies emerge, the debate has intensified. Advanced tools such as ground-penetrating radar and soil analysis are being applied to ancient sites in the hopes of uncovering new evidence. In recent years, some researchers have suggested that satellite imaging could reveal traces of ancient water systems or buried structures that have not yet been excavated. These new methods hold the potential to either confirm or debunk the existence of the gardens, adding a new layer of complexity to the debate. The tension heightens with every new excavation and discovery. Each dig brings with it the hope that the mystery will finally be solved, that archaeologists will unearth the remains of a garden terrace, or discover an ancient inscription that definitively proves or disproves the garden's existence. Yet, with each excavation that fails to provide concrete answers, the mystery deepens, and the academic divide widens. As more modern techniques are applied to the ruins of ancient Babylon, the stakes grow higher. Will these new technologies finally reveal the truth, or will the Hanging Gardens remain one of history's greatest unresolved enigmas? This scholarly conflict is more than just an academic disagreement. It touches on deeper questions about how we understand the past. The Hanging Gardens, whether real or imagined, symbolize humanity's enduring fascination with the ancient world. They represent the allure of lost knowledge, of wonders that once were, or might have been, and the frustration of the gaps in our historical record. For those who defend the garden's historicity, their existence would be a testament to the brilliance of ancient Babylon, proof that our ancestors were capable of extraordinary feats of engineering and creativity. For the skeptics, the gardens serve as a reminder of the power of myth and storytelling in shaping our understanding of history, showing how legends can endure even when the physical evidence does not. Ultimately, the debate over the Hanging Gardens is unlikely to be settled without a groundbreaking discovery. Until then, the The tension between fact and fiction, between historical skepticism and belief in the ancient world's wonders, will continue to captivate both scholars and the public alike. As the mystery persists, so too does our fascination with the idea of a lush, green paradise suspended above the desert sands, a symbol of human ambition, imagination, and the quest for knowledge that transcends time. Whether the Hanging Gardens of Babylon ever existed in physical form or not, their impact on human culture and imagination has been undeniable. Over the centuries, the image of this majestic, green paradise towering over the ancient city has transcended history to become a powerful symbol of human ambition, ingenuity, and the desire to conquer nature itself. Even without definitive proof of their existence, the legacy of the Hanging Gardens has influenced architecture, landscape design, art, and storytelling throughout history, shaping the way we think about the relationship between humanity and the natural world. One of the most profound legacies of the Hanging Gardens lies in their influence on architecture and landscaping. The very idea of creating a lush, multi-tiered garden in an otherwise harsh environment has inspired countless projects throughout history. From the grand palatial gardens of Renaissance Europe to modern urban green spaces, the concept of harnessing engineering and horticulture to create natural beauty in urban environments can be traced back to the legend of the Hanging Gardens. In many ways, these gardens were a precursor to modern architectural projects that seek to blend nature with human-made structures, such as vertical gardens, rooftop terraces, and urban parks. The influence of the Hanging Gardens can also be seen in the Persian tradition of walled gardens or paradises, and later, the grand gardens of the Mughal Empire, such as those at the Taj Mahal. Beyond architecture, the Hanging Gardens have captured the imaginations of artists, writers, and filmmakers for centuries. Throughout the Renaissance and into the modern era, the gardens have been depicted in countless paintings, illustrations, and literary works. Writers have often used the gardens as a metaphor for human achievement, or conversely, for the fragility of beauty and civilization. They serve as a symbol of a lost world, a reminder of the transience of great empires and the inevitable passage of time. In literature, the gardens are often invoked to illustrate the tension between nature and civilization, or to highlight the human desire to recreate paradise on Earth. In cinema, the Hanging Gardens have been brought to life in various forms, often depicted as grand backdrops for historical epics. They serve as a visual shorthand for opulence, grandeur, and the mysterious wonders of the ancient world. Films set in ancient times frequently use the gardens to evoke a sense of awe and the unattainable splendor of lost civilizations. In this way, the gardens continue to shape our cultural perception of what ancient wonders looked like, and how they might have embodied the pinnacle of human achievement. Perhaps more than anything, the Hanging Gardens symbolize the power of human engineering to dominate and reshape the natural world. If they existed, they would have represented one of the greatest triumphs of ancient engineering, an oasis in the desert created through the careful manipulation of water, plants, and architecture. This mastery of nature has always been central to human ambition, and the gardens stand as a metaphor for humanity's ability to bend nature to its will. This theme resonates even in modern times, as we continue to explore the possibilities of sustainable cities, vertical farming, and other ways to integrate greenery into urban life. More importantly, the Hanging Gardens remind us of the power of stories and legends in shaping our understanding of the past. The gardens may be the product of myth, but that does not diminish their impact. Legends like that of the Hanging Gardens serve a vital role in human culture. They inspire us, challenge us, and help us make sense of the world and its history. Whether they were real or imagined, the Hanging Gardens have fueled the human imagination for centuries, offering a vision of what is possible when human creativity and nature come together. The legacy of the Hanging Gardens transcends the need for physical evidence. The gardens have become a symbol of the human desire to create beauty in the most unlikely places, to achieve the impossible, and to leave a lasting mark on the world. They remind us that the stories we tell about the past, whether true or embellished, have the power to shape how we understand history and ourselves. The Hanging Gardens, therefore, live on not just in the pages of ancient texts or the ruins of ancient cities, but in the collective imagination of humankind, a testament to the enduring allure of myth and the limitless potential of human ingenuity. When considering the impact and significance of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, it's essential to explore the multiple perspectives that different groups within Babylonian society might have held if the gardens truly existed. The Hanging Gardens, as described in legend, would not have been a simple display of horticultural beauty. They would have carried different meanings depending on one's role, status, or relationship to the structures themselves. From symbols of power to places of spiritual connection, the gardens would have been perceived in distinct ways by various members of Babylonian society. These perspectives provide us with a richer understanding of how the gardens might have influenced the lives of the people of Babylon. For the Babylonian royal family, particularly King Nebuchadnezzar II, the Hanging Gardens would have stood as a potent symbol of power, wealth, and divine favor. As the ruler of one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world, Nebuchadnezzar sought to solidify his legacy not just through military conquest, but also through monumental architectural achievements. The gardens, if they existed, would have been a visual testament to his ability to command both the natural world and his people. They would have demonstrated Babylon's dominance and the king's divine right to rule by showcasing his capacity to create a paradise in the midst of a desert. For Queen Amytis, the gardens would have been a personal gift, symbolizing not just her husband's love, but also the power he wielded to bring the beauty of her homeland to the heart of Babylon. In this way, the gardens were more than just a wonder. They were a political statement, a message to foreign dignitaries and visiting rulers that Babylon, under Nebuchadnezzar's rule, was a city of unmatched sophistication, capable of feats that transcended the ordinary. To the royal court, the gardens were a source of pride, a physical manifestation of the king's vision and a symbol of the empire's grandeur. For the religious leaders and priests of Babylon, the Hanging Gardens could have held a deeply spiritual significance, representing a sacred connection between the heavens and the earth. In Babylonian religion, the gods played a central role in daily life, and natural elements such as rivers, mountains, and gardens were often seen as divine manifestations. The Hanging Gardens, with their towering terraces reaching skyward and their lush greenery sustained by intricate irrigation systems, might have been viewed as a bridge between the human and divine realms. The priests may have interpreted the gardens as a representation of the mythical paradise, a place where gods and mortals could commune. The presence of water cascading from the heights, nourishing the plants below, could have symbolized the life-giving power of the gods. In this way, the gardens might have been seen not just as a royal project, but as a divine offering, a way for the king to honor the gods and ensure their favor for the empire. For the priests, maintaining the spiritual purity of such a place would have been of great importance, and the gardens might have played a role in religious ceremonies or rituals designed to celebrate the god's presence in Babylon. For the laborers who built and maintained the gardens, the experience would have been far more grounded in the physical realm. Constructing such a grand feat of engineering would have required years of back-breaking labor, precise skill, and tireless maintenance. From the bricklayers who erected the terraces to the engineers who devised the irrigation systems, the workers would have experienced the gardens as both a source of immense pride and relentless toil. On one hand, the workers would have likely felt a sense of accomplishment and pride in contributing to one of the most remarkable wonders of the ancient world. To be involved in a project as monumental as the Hanging Gardens would have been a testament to their skill and dedication. However, the gardens also would have required constant maintenance, irrigation systems to manage, plants to cultivate, and structures to preserve. For the workers, the gardens represented both a masterpiece of human endeavor and the daily grind of keeping such a vast and intricate creation functioning in the harsh climate of Babylon. For merchants and travelers from distant lands, the Hanging Gardens would have been an awe-inspiring sight, an exotic wonder to recount upon their return to their homelands. Ancient Babylon was a crossroads of commerce and culture, attracting traders from across the ancient world, Egyptians, Persians, Greeks, and beyond. These foreign visitors would have marveled at the gardens, likely viewing them as an incredible spectacle that elevated Babylon above other cities of the ancient world. For these merchants, the gardens would have been more than just an architectural feat. They were a symbol of the empire's wealth, technological prowess, and sophistication. The lush greenery and the engineering marvel required to sustain such a garden in a desert climate would have left a lasting impression. Upon returning to their own lands, these traders would have shared stories of the gardens, contributing to their legend and cementing their place in the collective imagination of distant cultures. The gardens, therefore, became an integral part of Babylon's reputation as a city of wonders, helping to spread its fame across the known world. The Hanging Gardens, if they truly existed, would have held different meanings for different groups within Babylonian society. For the royal family, they were a statement of power and divine favor. For the priests, they represented a connection to the gods. For the workers, they embodied both pride and hardship. And for foreign visitors, they were a symbol of Babylon's grandeur and an exotic wonder to be shared in tales far beyond the city's borders. This diversity of perspectives highlights the multifaceted impact that the Hanging Gardens might have had on those who encountered them, both directly and indirectly. Whether they were real or imagined, the gardens remain a symbol of the extraordinary ability of humans to shape their environment, and the way in which that ability is perceived differently by each individual who experiences it. If the Hanging Gardens of Babylon truly existed, they would have represented a pinnacle of ancient engineering and technological innovation. In the dry, arid landscape of Mesopotamia, creating a lush, multi-tiered garden was no small feat. It required overcoming significant environmental and structural challenges. The technologies that would have been necessary to build and maintain the Hanging Gardens not only demonstrate the advanced capabilities of Babylonian engineers, but also highlight the influence these innovations may have had on the development of engineering across the ancient world. Let's explore the specific technologies that would have been required to make the Hanging Gardens a reality. The most remarkable technological challenge that the Hanging Gardens would have faced was irrigation. In a region where water was scarce and the climate harsh, sustaining a large, elevated garden required an ingenious solution to bring water from the Euphrates River to the higher levels of the garden's terraces. The water had to be transported upward, defying gravity, to ensure that every layer of the garden remained lush and thriving. It is likely that the Babylonians, or possibly the Assyrians if the gardens were in Nineveh, used a system similar to the Archimedes screw or a chain pump. These devices work by rotating a spiral or a set of connected buckets to lift water from a lower source to a higher elevation. While the exact mechanism is debated, ancient engineers would have needed to design a continuous water supply system capable of elevating vast quantities of water, enough to sustain not only the plants but also the microclimate that the gardens were purported to create. The scale of this irrigation system would have been immense, and it would have required a deep understanding of hydraulic engineering. Additionally, the water likely would have been stored in large cisterns at the top of the terraces and then channeled through aqueducts or pipes to each layer of the garden. This system would have mimicked natural rainfall, allowing water to flow down from the topmost terraces, nourishing the plants as it cascaded through the garden. Such a system would have required meticulous planning and construction to ensure that each terrace received enough water without flooding or causing erosion. The fact that ancient Mesopotamians already had extensive knowledge of canal systems and irrigation for agriculture suggests that they were capable of implementing such advanced water management techniques on a monumental scale. One of the lesser discussed but equally critical aspects of the Hanging Gardens' construction would have been waterproofing. The terraces, constructed of mud brick or stone, would have needed to be impervious to water to prevent the constant irrigation from damaging the structural integrity of the garden. Without proper waterproofing, the terraces would have quickly deteriorated as water seeped into the walls and foundations, causing them to crumble and collapse. To overcome this challenge, ancient engineers would have employed advanced waterproofing techniques. Bitumen, a natural form of asphalt found in the region, was commonly used in Mesopotamian construction to seal buildings and structures. Bitumen could have been applied to the terrace's foundations and walls to create a waterproof barrier, preventing water from seeping through and weakening the structure. Additionally, the engineers would have needed to develop systems for drainage to avoid the accumulation of stagnant water, which could lead to erosion or plant root rot. The durability of the gardens would have been tested by the weight of the soil, plants, and water held in the terraces. Soil is heavy, and when combined with water, the load increases dramatically. Engineers would have needed to ensure that the terraces were structurally sound enough to support this weight without collapsing. This likely involved reinforcing the terraces with strong materials such as stone or specially treated mud brick. The construction would have had to account for the weight distribution across multiple levels, ensuring that the lower terraces could bear the load of the upper ones without buckling under pressure. The sheer scale and complexity of the Hanging Gardens would have required cutting-edge structural engineering techniques for the time. Unlike most buildings in Mesopotamia, which were flat-roofed and single-story, the Hanging Gardens would have consisted of multiple tiers stacked one on top of the other. This required innovative solutions to support the terraces and the vast amounts of soil and water they held. To address these challenges, the gardens would likely have been constructed using a series of pillars or columns that supported the weight of the terraces above. The columns would have been arranged in such a way as to evenly distribute the load across the entire structure, preventing any single point from bearing too much weight. This would have required a deep understanding of geometry and weight distribution, as well as the ability to source and transport the materials needed to build such a complex structure. The use of arches or vaults may also have played a role in the garden's design, as these architectural elements help to distribute weight more efficiently. If the builders of the Hanging Gardens incorporated arches into their design, they would have been able to create larger, more open spaces on the lower levels while still supporting the weight of the upper terraces. These innovations in structural engineering would have been groundbreaking for their time and would have set a precedent for future architectural projects in the region. The technological innovations required to build the Hanging Gardens would not have existed in isolation. If the gardens were real, their construction would have influenced engineering and architecture across Mesopotamia and beyond. The techniques used to irrigate, waterproof, and support the gardens would have been shared among builders, leading to advancements in the design of palaces, temples, and urban infrastructure. The gardens also would have had an impact on how future civilizations approached the challenge of integrating nature with architecture. The idea of creating green spaces within urban environments, something that is still relevant today, can trace its roots back to the Hanging Gardens. Later cultures, such as the Romans, would build upon these innovations, constructing aqueducts to bring water into cities and designing elaborate public baths and fountains that relied on similar hydraulic technologies. In addition, the Hanging Gardens likely inspired future generations of landscape architects. The concept of creating a controlled, artificial environment in the midst of a harsh natural landscape would have been seen as a triumph of human ingenuity. The gardens represented the ultimate manipulation of nature, where plants and trees could flourish in an otherwise inhospitable setting, providing a model for other grand gardens throughout history, from the Persian paradises to the palace gardens of Europe. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed, would have been a marvel of ancient engineering, showcasing the advanced technological capabilities of the Babylonian or Assyrian civilizations. The innovations in irrigation, waterproofing, and structural engineering required to make the gardens a reality would have influenced the development of architecture and technology across the ancient world. These advancements in hydraulic engineering, construction, and landscape design were not just practical solutions. They were symbolic of humanity's ability to conquer nature and create beauty in even the most challenging environments. Whether or not the Hanging Gardens physically existed, their legacy of technological innovation continues to inspire modern engineers and architects. The pursuit of creating green, sustainable urban spaces is a challenge that remains relevant today, and the story of the Hanging Gardens reminds us of the potential for human ingenuity to overcome environmental obstacles and achieve the seemingly impossible. The presence of the Hanging Gardens, if they truly existed, would have had a profound impact on the daily lives of the citizens of Babylon. These gardens were not just an isolated wonder reserved for the elite, but a part of the broader landscape of the city, influencing how people experienced their surroundings, worked, and interacted with each other. From the specialized gardeners and engineers who maintained the gardens to the common citizens who might have sought shade under their terraces, the gardens would have shaped the rhythms of life in Babylon. They would have been a source of pride, curiosity, and wonder, affecting everything from local commerce to social gatherings. Let's take a deeper look at how the Hanging Gardens might have touched different aspects of daily life in ancient Babylon. The Hanging Gardens would have required a team of highly skilled gardeners to care for the vast array of plants, trees, and flowers. These were no ordinary plants. Many were likely brought from distant lands, selected for their beauty, fragrance, and ability to thrive in an artificial environment. The role of these gardeners would have been crucial, as they were tasked with maintaining the lush, thriving ecosystem that made the gardens so extraordinary. These gardeners would have had deep knowledge of agriculture, horticulture, and irrigation. They would have needed to understand the specific needs of each plant, from the amount of water required to the type of soil and the correct levels of sunlight. Some plants may have needed shade, while others thrived in direct sunlight. Given the heat of the Babylonian climate, they would also have to monitor the health of the plants constantly, ensuring they were not damaged by the intense sun or lack of moisture. These gardeners, working in shifts, would have been responsible for pruning trees, planting new species, and replacing any plants that did not survive the desert climate. For the gardeners, the Hanging Gardens would have been both a source of pride and a challenge. Maintaining such a vast and diverse ecosystem in the heart of a desert city was no small task. They may have seen themselves not just as laborers, but as custodians of one of the most magnificent and prestigious works of the ancient world. Equally important to the garden's success were the engineers who designed, built, and maintained the irrigation systems that kept the plants alive. The irrigation system was the lifeblood of the gardens, as the natural environment of Babylon could not support such extensive greenery without a continuous water supply. For the engineers, the Hanging Gardens would have been a testament to their ingenuity and technical expertise. However, their work didn't end with construction. They would have been constantly monitoring the complex system to ensure that water was being distributed evenly across the terraces. The daily work of these engineers involved checking the pumps or chain systems that lifted water from the Euphrates River, making sure they were functioning properly. Any malfunction in the irrigation system could have spelled disaster for the gardens, leading to plant death and structural damage. The engineers also needed to inspect the drainage systems, ensuring that excess water did not accumulate and cause erosion or flooding. These engineers likely worked behind the scenes, unseen by most citizens, but their role was vital to the garden's continued existence. Their efforts ensured that the Hanging Gardens remained not just a short-lived marvel, but a lasting symbol of Babylonian engineering and resilience against the desert's harsh climate. For the everyday citizens of Babylon, the Hanging Gardens might have served as more than just a distant symbol of royal power. They could have been a part of daily life. The gardens, with their cascading water and shaded terraces, would have offered a cool, refreshing escape from the relentless heat of the Babylonian sun. In a city where temperatures often soared, the gardens may have created a microclimate that provided a respite for those who lived nearby. It is easy to imagine Babylonian citizens gathering in the shaded areas around the gardens, seeking relief from the heat while socializing, conducting business, or simply relaxing. The sound of flowing water and the fragrance of flowers would have created a serene environment, contrasting sharply with the bustling, dusty streets of the city. Whether intentionally designed as a public space or not, the presence of such an awe-inspiring and lush environment would have inevitably drawn people in, giving them a place to gather, reflect, and enjoy the beauty around them. Additionally, the gardens might have influenced local customs and culture. Special events, religious ceremonies, or festivals could have been held near or within view of the gardens, further integrating them into the social fabric of Babylon. For common citizens, the gardens represented more than just a distant wonder. They were a part of their city, a source of pride and a daily reminder of the greatness of their civilization. The Hanging Gardens would also have been a major attraction for foreign visitors, merchants, diplomats, and travelers from distant lands. Babylon, as a center of trade and political power, attracted people from all corners of the ancient world. For these visitors, the gardens were likely one of the highlights of their journey, an exotic wonder that they could marvel at and describe upon returning to their own lands. Imagine the stories that merchants from Greece, Egypt, or Persia would have told upon witnessing the gardens for the first time. The sight of such a massive green structure rising above the flat, dusty landscape would have left a lasting impression. They would have marveled at the engineering behind it. How could such a lush paradise exist in the middle of a desert city? For these visitors, the Hanging Gardens were not just a testament to Babylon's wealth and power, but also to the ingenuity and creativity of its people. These stories would have spread far beyond Babylon, adding to the city's legendary status. Over time, the descriptions of the gardens would become embellished, creating a mythos that captured the imaginations of people across the ancient world. Even today, it is these tales from foreign visitors that contribute to the garden's status as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, despite the lack of physical evidence. The concept of creating lush, elaborate gardens in harsh or urban environments was not unique to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Across different civilizations, rulers and elites sought to impose order and beauty upon the natural world, creating oases of greenery and life in the midst of otherwise inhospitable landscapes. These gardens were not just decorative, they were powerful symbols of wealth, power, and the ability to control nature. By comparing the Hanging Gardens to other famous gardens in history, such as those of ancient Egypt, Persia, and China, we can see how different cultures approached the challenge of integrating nature with architecture and how these gardens became representations of their respective societies' values and aspirations. In ancient Egypt, the pharaohs and elite members of society created magnificent gardens, often in the arid and unforgiving environment of the Nile Valley. These gardens served a variety of purposes, from private retreats to religious sanctuaries, and were meticulously designed to provide shade, beauty, and a sense of tranquility. For the Egyptians, gardens were not just spaces for relaxation. They were deeply symbolic, representing the order of the universe, life, and rebirth. One of the most famous examples of Egyptian gardens can be seen in the temple complexes built by the pharaohs, particularly those constructed near Thebes and Karnak. These gardens often surrounded sacred spaces and were filled with carefully arranged trees, flowers, and pools of water. The Egyptians, like the Babylonians, relied on advanced irrigation techniques to bring water to their gardens, using the nearby Nile River as a source. Through a network of canals and basins, water was transported to nourish these artificial paradises, which stood in stark contrast to the dry, barren landscape beyond the temple walls. For the Egyptians, gardens were not only a display of wealth and power, but also a connection to the divine. The lush greenery within the desert was seen as a reflection of the afterlife, where the gods lived in eternal abundance. These sacred spaces mirrored the order and balance that the pharaohs sought to maintain in their rule, symbolizing their control over both the natural and spiritual worlds. While the Hanging Gardens of Babylon may have symbolized Nebuchadnezzar's personal love and political power, the Egyptian gardens represented the cosmic balance and the eternal cycle of life and death. In ancient Persia, gardens were an integral part of royal culture, and the Persian word for garden paradisa, from which the modern word paradise derives, reflects the grandeur and significance these gardens held. Persian gardens, like the Hanging Gardens, were designed to bring life and beauty to otherwise harsh landscapes, particularly the desert regions that dominated much of the Persian Empire. These gardens were often enclosed by high walls, creating a protected, sacred space that represented paradise on earth, a place of refuge, serenity, and divine favor. The most famous examples of Persian gardens come from the Achaemenid Empire, particularly during the reign of Cyrus the Great and his successors. These gardens were not merely ornamental. They were symbols of the king's power and ability to command nature. The layout of a typical Persian garden followed a highly structured, geometric design, with 4 quadrants divided by waterways or paths. This design, known as the Chaharbagh or Four Gardens, was intended to represent the 4 corners of the world and the king's control over all the lands within his domain. The abundance of plants, flowers, and water within these gardens contrasted sharply with the dry, barren landscapes outside, reinforcing the king's ability to tame and beautify nature. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the Persian Paradisa share many similarities in their intent and execution. Both represented the ability of a powerful ruler to shape the natural world, turning desert into garden. However, where the Hanging Gardens were possibly built to soothe the homesickness of a queen and serve as a testament to Babylon's greatness, the Persian gardens were more explicitly tied to royal authority and the divine right of kings. These gardens served as visual metaphors for the king's rule, as well as places of contemplation, leisure, and spiritual reflection. In ancient China, imperial gardens were designed with a focus on creating harmony between humanity and nature, often replicating entire landscapes in miniature. These gardens were more than just spaces of leisure. They reflected deep philosophical principles rooted in Taoism, Confucianism, and later, Buddhism. Chinese gardens were designed to evoke the natural beauty of the surrounding world, carefully balancing elements such as rocks, water, plants, and architecture to create a sense of peace and order. The imperial gardens of China, such as those built by the emperors of the Han and Tang dynasties, were sprawling complexes that often incorporated lakes, mountains, and forests into their design. These gardens were carefully curated to reflect the balance and harmony that the emperor sought to maintain within his realm. Unlike the rigid geometric designs of Persian gardens, Chinese gardens were designed to appear natural and unplanned, although every element was meticulously placed. The goal was to create an idealized version of nature, where humans could live in harmony with the world around them. The gardens of Babylon, Persia, and China share a common thread in their ability to manipulate the natural environment for aesthetic and symbolic purposes. However, where the Hanging Gardens of Babylon may have been a triumph of engineering over the harsh environment, Chinese gardens emphasized the seamless integration of nature and architecture. They reflected the emperor's role as a mediator between heaven and earth, creating spaces where natural beauty could be experienced and revered without disturbing the natural order. Despite the differences in cultural context, the common theme running through these examples is the human desire to dominate, beautify, and find harmony with the natural world. In Egypt, the gardens represented eternal life and the power of the pharaoh. In Persia, they symbolized the king's ability to create paradise on earth. In China, they embodied philosophical ideals of balance and harmony. And in Babylon, the Hanging Gardens, if real, were an expression of love, power, and the triumph of human ingenuity over a harsh environment. Each of these cultures sought to create an oasis amidst difficult conditions, whether it be the desert of Mesopotamia, the arid lands of Persia, or the controlled environments of imperial China. In doing so, they demonstrated the universal human ambition to impose order on nature and create beauty even in the most challenging circumstances. So, did the Hanging Gardens of Babylon actually exist? The truth is that with the evidence available today, we cannot say for certain. Despite centuries of debate and archaeological efforts, no definitive proof of their existence has been found. Yet, perhaps the more important question isn't whether they existed, but why this legend has persisted for so long and continues to capture our imagination. What is it about the idea of the Hanging Gardens that resonates so deeply across time and cultures? The Hanging Gardens, whether real or imagined, symbolize the eternal human desire to create beauty in the face of adversity. They represent our aspiration to conquer the impossible through innovation, engineering, and sheer will. In many ways, they reflect a universal ambition, the need to transform our surroundings, to build something enduring and remarkable that defies the constraints of nature. The Hanging Gardens are a testament to our capability to envision a better, more beautiful world, even if that vision exists only in the stories we tell. This legend has endured not simply because of the garden's potential grandeur, but because it taps into something fundamental about the human spirit. The idea that a king could create an oasis in the desert, a verdant paradise floating above the arid sands, speaks to our deepest hopes and dreams. It's a story of love, of power, and of humanity's relationship with the natural world. In this way, the gardens have come to embody more than just a physical structure. They are an allegory for our quest to overcome obstacles and achieve greatness. Perhaps this is why the legend of the Hanging Gardens has persisted for so long, and why it continues to intrigue us. It is not the physical ruins that matter most, but the legacy of the story itself. The impact of the idea has proven to be as powerful, if not more so, than any physical reality. The gardens represent the power of imagination, the capacity of human creativity to shape history and inspire generations. Whether or not they were real, the Hanging Gardens remind us that the boundaries between myth and reality are often fluid, and that the stories we pass down through the ages can shape how we view the world just as much as tangible artifacts. As we continue to excavate the past and dream of the future, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon remain suspended between myth and reality. They challenge us to look beyond what is immediately visible, to explore the unknown and seek out the wonders hidden in our world. The gardens may or may not have physically existed, but their influence endures, urging us to keep imagining, keep creating, and keep striving for the extraordinary. They stand as a monument not just to the people of ancient Babylon, but to the power of human ingenuity and the endless potential of the human spirit. In the end, perhaps the most lasting legacy of the Hanging Gardens is the inspiration they provide, encouraging us to believe that, with enough vision and determination, anything is possible.